Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. This is now our 17th edition of the Homes and Money Realtor Mastermind. I have two great agents with me today. One I've known for a long time, the other one I just met last week. So I have Molly Einan and Sarah Limper, and they are with Coldwell Banker and consistently in the top rankings in the city. So definitely somebody that we can learn from today. Molly and Sarah, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So they are a team, and I don't like to use the word monster, but they are a two-headed monster. It's not like one is admin and the other one's sales. They are both sales, and they're going to kind of talk about their dynamic with us today. But first of all, and I'll start with Molly and then Sarah, go to you. Molly, have you been in Cincinnati your whole life? Did you grow up here?
Yeah, I grew up here. I grew up in Glendale and went to Princeton High School. That's going to be the next question everybody asks if you grew up in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And then I did live in Colorado for about 6 years and then came back.
Okay.
So I've been back since about 2007.
Great. And Sarah, how about you?
Yep, I have been here all my life. I grew up in Finneytown, went to Finneytown High School, and then went to UC. So I have never left.
Good. Good. And then the next part of this is, how long have you been in real estate? So I'm going to go back to Sarah this time, and then Molly, will go to you. But how long have you been in real estate, and what made you get into it?
So I bought my first house in 2009, and I had a fantastic experience with my agent. I will give her a shout out, Ann Bettinghouse, also with Coldwell Banker. And I just really loved how she made me feel throughout the process. The market was completely different back then, than it is now. But I looked at a lot of houses, and not once did she pressure me. And I just really enjoyed the experience. And I was at a time in my life where I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I had just graduated from college. I had just I was pursuing my first house, but I was in corporate world and wasn't really that excited about it. And, the whole world of real estate really gave me, some excitement. So I pursued that. And then I have been licensed since 2009. And you'll learn once Molly talks that I actually took a very non-traditional route into sales. I actually started with leasing, and when I got licensed, the market was kind of, had crashed, and leasing provided a second, a kind of a plan B for the people that were unable to sell their houses. So I did leasing for a couple years, and then I did more admin back end work for a team, which is where I met Molly. She was the buyer's agent of the team. And then I broke away from that and started as a buyer's agent with a different team. And then Molly and I linked up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, Molly, your turn.
Okay. I guess I kind of started when I worked in Colorado. I was working for a property management company, and kind of started to see how it kind of worked with leasing and things like that. And then when I moved back to Cincinnati, I was running the office for an architect for Beck Architecture. And so I got to see kind of the fun design side of things. And then at that time, I was also thinking about starting a family and getting pregnant. And I was like, I don't really know if I want to do the 9-to-5 type of thing. And so I got my real estate license just as I was still working for the architecture firm. And then throughout kind of the classes and the schooling, I was like, wow, this is actually what I really want to be doing. So I switched and started working for a team as the buyer's agent. And that went well. I mean, I hit the ground running. I think I did like 35 transactions my first year. You know, just I wouldn't have had that experience had I not worked for a team. So I'm really glad that I did. But I was on that team for about six years, I think, and I decided, you know, I really kind of want to do both sides, the listing, buying, and kind of not necessarily want to work on somebody else's team. And so at that same time, you know, Sarah, like she said, we became really good friends when we were working together, and she had left the team and I had left as well, and we had always just stayed really good friends. And both of us were like, you know, we like the aspect of a team that you have someone to bounce ideas off of, and, you know, kind of, if you want to take a vacation, you have somebody you can trust that can help your clients and keep your transactions moving. And so, you know, we just had some really fun, like serious conversations, and decided that we wanted to do this together. And that's when we went to Bill Heckman at Coldwell Banker and met with him, because we decided we wanted a fresh start. We wanted to go to a brokerage that we hadn't worked with before. And so we talked to Bill, and we just decided, yeah, this is what we want to do. And they were really helpful. I mean, they helped us set up an LLC to run to start the business, and just, you know, gave us a lot of support when we decided to start working with them. So in our very first year, we made Circle of Excellence. So it was
Awesome.
fun. Yeah.
Congrats. One question I have, and I don't think I've ever asked this before of any of our guests, but, you know, Molly, you said you were going through the schoolwork and the classes and kind of realized this is what I really want to do. Sarah, you were corporate America and kind of came over. What was it that made you say, this is what I love about real estate? I don't think it was showing 35 houses, right? No, like, what was it? The thrill of the deal, like the, you know, negotiation? What was it that really kind of drew you to this career?
Do you want me to go?
Sure.
I would say it's just the relationship side. It was helping somebody find a home that fit their needs and their wants for that specific stage in life. And since then, it's been continuing that relationship, and, you know, your needs, your wants, your stages of life change. So just going through all of those stages with them, it was really the relationships part. I actually minored in real estate in college. I had worked for I co-opted at Fisher Homes, and I only minored in real estate because it was just a natural fit. But I was in the marketing department at Fisher, and in college, the real estate, it was all commercial, and I absolutely detested it. I had I knew that I wasn't, in my mind, I knew that I wasn't going to ever use real estate. It was just kind of, you know, filling in the blank of a minor. So I really had no anticipation to use it. But then once I experienced, you know, the relationship aspect with my agent going through the process of buying my first home, I was like, man, I would really, really like to help people. I would love, you know, to assist them with just this exciting experience of buying a home, because your home is such a, you know, it's a foundation for so much.
Yep.
Yeah. It's the same kind of thing. Although I was excited about kind of the idea of negotiating and getting the best deal for my client, and, you know, all the fun things that go along with it. But and the flexibility. I mean, to be honest, I want to. If you talk about how I got started, that was kind of the biggest thing. Was like, I was really excited to kind of build my own business and be my own boss, and help people, and kind of be. Sarah and I always tell our clients when we first meet with them or first work with them, we want to be a real estate agent for life. So everything we do, we do with your best interest at heart, and really thinking long term, you know, depending on how long you're going to be in this house, is this a good fit for you? And just try to educate them as much as we can throughout the entire process, that, you know, this isn't just a one and done for us. We really, about 85% of our business almost every year comes from repeat or referral clients. So that's really been our focus.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I don't know that I've shared this with either of you or anybody else that's on the call, but my first mortgage, the person that did my loan, spent time in prison after that. So when you talk
Ow.
about, yeah,
Oh my goodness.
when you talk about like an experience, when Sarah said that the experience that she went through with Anne kind of made her realize that this is something that she loved doing, the experience that we offer people and that we provide people is crucial, because you may be training your next buyer's agent, you may be training, you may be training your next transaction coordinator, whatever it is. And so you just never know, and you have to make sure that you're doing the right job while you're going through it, so providing the best value and service that you can.
For sure.
Okay, so you guys met while working on a team, and now you're a team. And I mentioned this earlier, the dynamics of a team can kind of sometimes be tricky. So how do you divvy up responsibilities of the team? And Molly mentioned this, that you started an LLC, so you're both probably partners of this LLC. What do you have other team members? How do you divvy up responsibilities? Kind of take me through that.
Yeah, we have 2 other employees. I mean, Sarah and I are employees as well, but we have an administrative assistant. She works for us 3 days a week. She, helps deliver client gifts, and, does sometimes puts our signs in, just anything that we need kind of at the office. And then we have Lindsay, who does our marketing, and she is now an employee of ours, and she's helped us tremendously. But because we kind of we've gone through a couple different marketing people until we found her, but she really kind of gets us and gets our vibe, and we are really lucky to have her. And then we also hired a transaction coordinator. She's not our employee, she's an independent contractor, but we work with her on every single listing and buyer side sale. So that's kind of how our team is. And then Sarah and I are just equal partners. I mean, we kind of each do our own transactions, and then when we need each other's help, we'll support that. But from the start, after work, both of us working on different teams, we knew we didn't want to have a hierarchy. I mean, we split everything 50-50. Like, there's none of us, it doesn't matter how many transactions we do per year or anything like that. We're really truly partners and equal partners. And I think that's been kind of the key to our success. Plus she's awesome. So I enjoy working with her.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I mentioned this, we had a brief conversation on Friday. And I think Sarah said, that's a great question, I'm going to find out. So you mentioned that you have a marketing person.
Yeah.
What type of strategy do you guys use for social media and marketing? And is there a theme behind it? Is there, like, what type of stuff are you putting out and presenting to potential buyers? Sarah, what'd you find out?
So just to backtrack a little bit, Molly mentioned we were kind of fumbling all over the place marketing wise. Naturally, Molly has kind of fallen into more of the financial role of our team. So she keeps all of, she pays our bills and our expenses, keeps our expenses in track and all of that. And I've always, geared my attention more towards the marketing part of it. But, when you're buying and selling and have children and everything else, marketing was falling to the wayside. So we really, really needed more help. And up until, when was it that we truly created a brand? Like 4 years ago?
4 years ago. Yeah. Because we've been together since 2015. So yeah, it's been about 8 years.
So we realized that, you know, having somebody kind of dabble in it here and there wasn't really providing us the support and the brand recognition that we needed. So we went through kind of an identity phase where we hired an outside company to interview us and really get down to the, you know, the fundamentals of who we are and how we run our business. And that is where we created the whole Haven name and brand and colors and fonts and then we hired Lindsay, who has taken all of that and created all of our marketing and our social media, and she runs all of that. And I will read verbatim what she said when I asked her, and she said, our strategy is pretty basic. It's to maintain a strong brand and presence and do so consistently. She said, I consider myself a brand expert and like to make sure that every single piece that is posted or that is front facing is associated with our brand. We want to create a strong relationship between our name and brand, and we want our audience to come to expect great visuals with resourceful information, just like the quality service your clients have come to expect with the Molly and Sarah name. Our end goal is to provide valuable information as Haven Home Group. So that's it.
That's
I would
great.
add to that
yeah.
Lindsay is, she's also very kind of local minded, as are Sarah and I. So she puts a lot of that into our marketing as well, with kind of market snapshots in different neighborhoods. And, you know, every Friday she sends out a what's happening, you know, in Cincinnati kind of thing, just to keep people engaged in local businesses and local events. So she's kind of combined that as well with our real estate.
Yes.
Marketing.
That's great. Yeah, I'm reading a book right now by Brendan Kane. He's the guy that wrote 1 Million Followers, and then now the book that I'm reading is called Hook Point. And Sarah, when you were saying this, it kind of just like floored me a little bit, because he says in there that we should be able to identify our brand in 3 words or less. That's 3 words is not a lot, right?
No.
Not a lot. So that it sounds like your team has done great there and identified what your values are, and so you went through this brand process. You are, is it Haven Homes?
It's well, so it's Haven Home Group.
Haven Home Group.
And I think we still have our names in it because, you know, your name is such, I mean, it is such a piece of real estate. You know, somebody hires you regardless of whether you're with Coldwell Banker or what your team name is. You know, they're hiring you as the individual. So we were really reluctant to drop that out of creating, you know, our brand and our name. I think we had the intention of dropping the home group and just having it as Haven, but you know, who knows where it'll go. Recently, our marketing has kind of adapted to just using our H. Actually, it's on my Yeti right here. So, you know, we're just, who knows where it'll take us, but it is technically Haven Home Group.
Great.
And it was, you know, I feel like we had really hit the nail on the head when I stopped by one of the West Side Coldwell Banker office, and one of the agents there was like, you know, your marketing is so great. You know, whenever I see a post on social media, I don't even have to look at the name there. I just know it's yours. And I'm like, oh, well, that's great, since, you know, apparently we're cohesive and consistent. And I really think it goes back to Lindsay just using the same colors, the same fonts, the same style. And she's really done a fantastic job with that.
That's great. Okay, I'm going to give warning to Patrick, Miranda, and Lindsay. Couple of things that we talked about before I hit record was, you know, in the finance side of this market, it seems to me that I've seen buyer's market, seller's market, buyer's market, seller's market, and it like goes back and forth almost weekly. And Molly was telling me that she just had a listing that had 15 offers, and is going to sell with appraisal gap, with an appraisal gap strategy, and is going to sell at roughly 20% over ask. And so that, like, Miranda got on here and we were talking about it on the pre-call, and she's seeing a totally different market. And I honestly don't know. I mean, it could be pockets of Cincinnati that have difference. I know Lindsay Spears is on the call. She had a listing not too long ago where we didn't even get list price, and this was in February. So I think some of it just depends, but I wanted to ask the group collectively what you're seeing, and if you could kind of talk to how quickly you see that changing, and then what strategy do you, sorry, this is a loaded question, but what strategy do you employ with your sellers and your buyers when you start to see that change?
Yeah, you had a lot of questions there.
Okay, let me start simple. Molly, when you listed that property in Deer Park,
Yeah.
you felt like you priced it accordingly to the market that we were currently in. And
I
then
did. Yeah.
You actually listed it higher.
I listed it higher than I was going to. And I had even a little like cheat because a house across the street had just closed like 2 weeks ago. And it closed a couple thousand over where I was listed. So I thought, I'm in the range of what it should be worth. And I just was kind of blown away. It was like COVID, 2021, 2022 all over again. And I feel like the spring market's gonna be like that, because this is the second listing that this has happened with in the last couple of weeks. So it's just there was a little bit of concern maybe with the interest rates going, up and down and then back up again, that would cause some problems. But Cincinnati is in such a deficit for inventory that it's going to take us years before we start to kind of see anything. I think that's a stable market. It's going to be a seller's market for a while. And I still, when I go on listing appointments, try to give them a range of what I think the house is going to sell for. But I think the key to even getting all those people through and the multiple offers is still to price it appropriately, where it's, you're not reaching too high because you can miss out on some buyers. But you also, I know some agents might underprice things just to try to create that frenzy, but I don't think that does anybody any good. So I'm still trying to do my best to appraise properties and price them where I think they should sell or where they will appraise. But it's wild again, I think.
Yeah, I think Tyler Mingus was on, I think, like my 4th or 5th week, and he talked about not chasing the market. And look, everybody on here would love to give an estimated value or estimated sales price to your seller, and then have that far exceeded by the negotiations and bids that come in. That makes everybody a hero. So you don't want to under promise, because then I think people scratch their heads and they're like, well, what's wrong with this house? Why is it priced here? So it's a tricky game. So strategy question.
Can I add?
Yep.
When I'm pricing a property, I actually I pay far more attention to what the list price was nowadays than what it sells for. Because, like Molly said, you don't want to overshoot it, but also you don't want to undershoot it. And I just feel like that list price is more of the realistic starting point of where you should be at. And then from there, buyer competition is going to take it to its whatever market value is that day. just, based on competition. Cause I feel like that's kind of where we're at is, what it's worth versus what somebody is going to pay there's such a gray area right now because the lack of inventory is creating, that moving target. Because there's nothing out there. I mean, I just priced a property for a new listing I have coming on in Blue Ash, and I mean, there's one active listing within like a $300,000 price range. It's like from 400 to 700,000. There's one active listing, and that's just ludicrous. So of course, when I list mine, we're gonna have a big pool of buyers, but we'll see.
Yeah.
So I think the list price, people last year were just throwing stuff on at wild prices. I still think, especially now, I think buyers have just been beaten down where they really are tired of being taken advantage of. And, I think that you can only get away with so much with a list price. So I really think you still need to price it appropriately and conservatively to a certain point.
So I'm glad you said that because it reminded me to ask this question. But Sarah, how do you set your buyer's expectations when, for example, you may have the buyer that goes in to bid on the listing that Molly had, and there's 15 other offers. Is there a way that you set up the expectations with that buyer so that they're not going to get crushed?
Yes. I do. And I think that there's a big learning curve with buyers too, especially whether it's their first home or not. This is a market that none of us have really played ball in, even if it's their fifth house. If they haven't bought a house in the last, 2 or 3 years, they don't realize how competitive they have to be. But yes, I set expectations that you have to be aggressive. You hear the different strategies people are using, whether it's escalation clauses, whether it's buying a property as is. And I go over, the positives and negatives of going that route. And the risks that you're taking by doing, by buying a property as is, or whether if that's not their comfort level though, I always, kind of hammer down on that. Do what's within your comfort level. Because I don't ever want to push somebody into a territory that they don't want to be in. Because again, it's all about the relationship and the experience. And I don't want them at the end of it to be like, you told me to buy a property as is and not do an inspection, and now I have this train wreck of a property that I own. Well, that's not the experience that I wanted, so I'm never going to push somebody that in that direction. But yeah, I mean, I give them the tools. I discussed with them the benefits, the risks, and then ultimately it comes down to how badly they want something. And, I will, and it also, I find that they become more and more aggressive the more they lose out on. So that's where the learning curve comes in, is they're like, well, I'm glad that one didn't work out, but I really want this one. So I'm going to give it my all. And if they're planning to be there for, X amount of years, I also bring that to their attention as, yes, real estate is cyclical. It goes up, it goes down, but it always has a positive trend, over time. So you're going to be okay.
You also can't be looking at the top of your price range. I mean,
no, you cannot. That's
like,
another.
You have to build in a buffer now so that you have a chance to go above if that's the house that you really want.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. If you have, say, a property that they're looking at that's 260 and they're pre-approved up to 270, like, are you setting the expectation like, hey, this may be enough, but don't get emotionally attached, and that's so hard. I know that with you guys, you walk somebody through the house and they fall in love with a certain aspect and they're like, this is my house, right? And the next thing you know, it's 20,000 higher than they can afford, and they're crushed. And then they want to they don't want to see any houses for a while, right?
Right.
Yep.
I
Yep.
think when we start working with buyers, Sarah and I both do like a face-to-face buyers consultation with them. And, you know, depending on if they're first-time home buyers or not, you know, we can still walk them through the process, what the market looks like now. And I've started to incorporate MLS listing sheets of, I usually have an idea of what their price range is when we first meet. And so I pull, you know, current listings that have just sold and just point out to them, look, this is what it was listed, this is what it sold for. Like, this is happening consistently. Because I feel like the more preparation you can have or give them in this market, the more willing they will be to kind of really reach for a property that makes sense to them. But it, you know, it's still hard when there's emotions involved, and, you know, especially some of these first-time home buyers, if they are only putting, you know, 5 or 10% down, it's harder to compete. But you know, that we just kind of keep telling them there's a house out there, we're going to
Sure.
find it. It's just, you know, kind of we're also you know, counselors sometimes, and we have to just kind of keep them positive and moving, you know, in a forward direction. And it might take a couple offers, but you know, I think going through that process is still valuable. So even if they don't get the first or second house, we're going to get there.
So do you see, Molly, you mentioned this before we started the call, but that you're not seeing a lot of cash offers anymore. Are you seeing more government financing still, even with 15 offers, 16 offers?
It's still the smaller percentage. You know, the FHA, VA financing, with that welcome home grant that was coming into play a couple of times for listings that we've had at the beginning of the year. But, you know, it's still the more you put down, conventional financing is still kind of a better option. I have seen quite a few VA and FHA offers, though. The buyer is saying that they will cover the cost of any repairs that are required by that appraisal. So I think that is a tremendous help for those types of buyers, because you just never know what those appraisers are going to come back with. So I think that's a good thing to incorporate into any of the offers if you have financing like that, or buyers that have financing like that.
If you got an offer as a seller or as a listing agent,
Mhm.
you got an offer that had appraisal gap or had inspection contingencies waived, which one would you look at more favorably, and how would you present that to your seller?
I think it depends. It's very situational. I think it depends on the property itself. I think it also depends on the seller, and it depends on the buyer. I mean, if it's a first-time home buyer, are they going to freak out at an inspection that has a bunch of minor stuff? Or is it somebody who has owned a home before and they can see that, you know, an inspection most of the time has, you know, a bunch of little stuff. You know, I really think it's just situational. Have your sellers cared for the property? Have they done preventative maintenance? Have they, you know, gone through and truly gotten it ready, or have they neglected it for a bit? You know, I think it just depends on the property itself and the buyer and the seller.
Yeah. So, Miranda, I saw that you may be getting ready to ask something, and I think this is a good, just a general question. Miranda does a lot of work in Dayton. You know, Sarah and Molly, you guys do a lot of work in Cincinnati and the suburbs. You know, for years we've all grown up thinking that the two cities would eventually kind of merge, right? And the boundaries are getting closer and closer. So, Molly, let's say that you have a client that wants to look Springboro, North, start getting up that way, how would you know to go in appropriately for that offer when Miranda could be in a completely different market as the listing agent, and she sees that offer come over full ask and she's like, oh, hallelujah, right? Like, so like I'm just saying, like, your job is so difficult in that regard, to know the different pockets of the market. So, and Miranda, I would ask you the same thing. Like, you have somebody that wants to venture down to Westchester or Monroe, and you're kind of seeing some different signs where you're at.
I think honestly, I would like to partner with Miranda, and if I can't pull up all the information I need in our multiple listing service, because I can't get into the Dayton market yet. I mean, they've combined our purchase contracts, but we still can't pull up properties and look at comps and all of that. So I'm not doing my client a service by trying to sell them a property that I really can't find the market data that I need to help them make a competitive offer. So in that respect, I would probably call Miranda and say, hey, can you help me with this buyer? Can you give me a tip fee or whatever, and pass the buyer on to somebody who is an expert in that market, because I think that's our job too. We can't oversell what our capabilities are. And honestly, that's something I wouldn't do. I wouldn't, even though I can write an offer anywhere in Ohio. I'm not gonna to do that. I would try to co-op with somebody.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, real estate is so local. And while yes, Dayton is not that far away, clearly they're going through a different market than we are, just speaking with Miranda. So you're not, and again, it goes back to the whole experience and relationship that you want to have with your client. And it's in their best interest to have somebody who is an expert in that area, be their trusted advisor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm licensed in Kentucky too. So I go Northern Kentucky, but there's quite a few agents in my office who, if they have buyers that are looking, we'll work together, and I'll work with their clients when they're looking in Kentucky. So I think that works well. If it's, especially if it's an agent that you trust and is going to provide the same level of service to your clients that you do, that's the way to go, to have their experience be the best one.
Sure. Miranda,
yeah. I was going to say, yeah, just to echo on that. I mean, I agree, because it's not only about the client's experience, it's also yours as well. And so if you are having a terrible experience driving an hour only to get there and it's ending as soon as you walk in the door, I mean, you're going to be resentful of that situation as well. So that is in nobody's best interest. And I mean, really what you hit on, Molly, on the sales contract being the same, that I can speak is the only thing that's the same between the two markets. And there's literally nothing else. Even though we're both on Central Lock, it's two different lock boxes. I mean, it's literally, everything is different. Everything. So, I mean, as to the more I know Cincinnati, you guys are, how you said, Molly, hey, here's the high school. That's what someone's going to ask me. Nobody in our area would ever ask that or even think to ask that. They just don't care. You guys are neighborhood by neighborhood. So you guys are super Microsoft, kind of micro markets, as to where, if you ask me where I service, it's an hour radius of Dayton. We're that much more rural and going that far and still being very knowledgeable in those markets, as to where you guys are so small. So yeah. And even me, I mean, because we do a ton of transactions, I mean, we know those markets because we're in them, but otherwise, yeah, I mean, the tax proration could be different, or the volume of offers. So it's all around. You really, like you said, got to know what you're doing in order to be able to represent that client, for sure. I agree.
Yeah, I can echo that a little bit. I was week or so ago driving through where Miranda's at, and I mean, there's parts of the Dayton market that would resemble Glendale or Westchester, and then there's parts that would resemble the old OTR, right? Not the new OTR, but the old OTR. So it just, yeah, completely different. Patrick asked, what percentage of your business is buyer versus listing?
Mm,
I'd say probably 60-40.
buyers are heavy. We're heavier on buyers,
Mm.
but yeah. And I think some of that is, well, I don't know why that is. We do deal with a lot of first time home buyers. So
I think it's our like
but
probably our age of our clientele, because we are mainly repeat and referral. I don't know. I guess that's why.
Yeah, I think that, you know, you mentioned the age of your clientele. We're coming into like this perfect storm of real estate and finance, because there's going to be the largest number of millennial buyers that ever purchased their first home within the next couple of years. You mentioned that we have this extreme shortage of inventory. I saw an article this morning that nationwide we have 11,000 fewer homes for sale now than we did 2 weeks ago. You know, not just Cincinnati, but nationwide, 11,000 fewer homes. I mean,
wow.
interest rates are higher, rents are twice as high as interest rates are. I mean, it's just perfect storm that we're not going to be able to help it. People are going to have to buy houses. And I think to an extent, with all of these first-time home buyers coming in, the expectations that they have probably need to be adjusted a little bit. You know, I've got some first-time home buyers right now that are wanting to buy $500,000 for their first home. And I just kind of laugh like, man, that's so different than when I bought my first home. And, you know, I used my first home to help buy my next home because of the money that I made on it. So, you know, I just think there's this crazy time right now. You mentioned it, that we've never seen anything like this.
No.
And
before.
Sarah and I went to a new construction panel a couple nights ago, and the builder that was there talking is talking about kind of that, like they still can't get a handle on their costs, and they're not able to kind of hedge the market like they have in the past. And that's where our extra inventory used to be made up, was new construction. And until they can kind of get their feet on the ground and get an idea, get a solid cost, and just even getting their supply chain kind of worked through, it sounds like we're gonna have to kind of keep dealing with this market.
Have you seen anything happen where you have people in contract on new construction, and then to get new traffic in the door, the builders dropping the base price of the houses? So I know, like M&I Homes locally, there's a buyer that's under contract for $50,000 higher than what the sign now says at the entrance of the neighborhood, starting at, they put a big yellow box over it, and it's a $50,000 decrease. And the buyer called and said, "Hey, what are we going to do about this?" And the builder's like, "Nothing." Right. So like, I mean, I get it. I think realistically, it's not 50,000 cheaper. I think it's a marketing ploy to get people in the door.
Definitely.
Right.
For
You're
sure.
gonna pay more in add-ons and selections and everything else. But the optics are crazy, and we're going to have to see some of those things where you've got to get traffic in the door, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I would agree. And I've also seen builders who are like, maybe there was like a lot that they weren't going to build on, and then they're adding on to it, so it's just kind of, I don't know, goofy stuff that they have going on. But
Lindsay, Miranda, Patrick, any other questions you guys have? I think this has been phenomenal, Molly. I'm glad, again, I say this almost every week, but I'm glad you finally said yes, and then told me that Sarah would be on there with us, because we get 2 for 1. And I've enjoyed, this conversation. I think that it's been helpful on a lot of different fronts for people that either were here now or that may listen to this in the future. And so thank you for being my guest. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you for
us.
having us.
It's been a fun conversation to have. Yeah. Miranda, you should shoot us your info too.
Oh yeah, so we can refer you business.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, it's great. This is what it's for. Now there's a connection that's been made. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you
Just
so
don't put your
much.
face on scoreboards in schools or Miranda starts to freak out, right? So no, like just side story is that you know, my son, her son both play basketball, and I had talked to her recently, and then like 2 days later she's sitting in a gym and she looks up and my face is on the scoreboard and she's like, "Are you following
Oh
me?"
my
Like
gosh,
That's awesome.
that's
So.
too funny.
yeah. So all right. Well, I appreciate it. Next week's episode 18, we're gonna have Didi Alice on here. I appreciate all of the input and those of you that have supported this from day one. Patrick, I still am so grateful for you and the support that you provide for this. But Molly and Sarah, thank you for being here today, and
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Yes.
Everyone have a great day.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
too. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.